Greetings and blessings, listeners, and welcome back to another edition of Morning Musings and Midnight Chats. And in this episode, we're going to reference a previous episode because I felt like it deserved more of a, I don't know, I felt like I had things to address in the last episode that I didn't feel quite like I could say, and it just kind of bothered me that I felt like that, because what we were talking about was, the effect of Kamala's candidacy for president of the United States on women, well, anywhere in the world, and how that simple fact in itself affects the way women present themselves in the world. The problem I had was that, well, there's a couple things. I guess I'll start off with the first thing. The first thing is that, in order for, like we were talking about patriarchy, and that in order for women to quote unquote succeed in a patriarchal based system, world, really, they have to adopt the position, the beliefs, the politics, if you will, of traditionally patriarchal, maybe you could say, if that makes sense.
What do you mean?
So that
what do you mean
so they
by that?
have to take in the case of Kamala. See, this is the other thing that I had. Like, I can't separate. It's very difficult for me to separate Kamala Harris from her politics, like, especially given the context of the last episode, because I feel like I'm a feminist, if you want to use that word. You don't have to use that word if you don't like it. A lot of people don't like to use that word. A lot of people hate that word, but whatever. I am all for a woman head of state, a woman president. Absolutely. I am 100%. I would like to see that. And yet I can't 100%. I can't 100% get behind her politics for reasons I hope would be obvious. Well, that are not obvious to everyone, but I feel like that they should be. That's me, but I mean, I see things through a very political lens, and I'm quite obsessed with politics. Really,
yeah. Well,
I follow it a lot more.
That's your thing. And I can see where you are saying that, because I only know about how you feel about things because we talk so often, and your personal podcast, C&D, and I know a lot of what goes on with that. I listen to, and everybody, you need to check out his Nigel's
Curious Naked
Diatribes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm really beginning to show my age these days. But no, you really should check his podcast out. And that's the only reason, to be honest with you, Nigel, it's the only reason that I know anything of what you're talking about. If I didn't know you, I wouldn't think anything of it. I would still be I possibly would be of the belief, because I don't know that I would even check into it enough, that there is a very strong tie to Israel and yada, yada, yada. And those are really, dare I say it, those are really the bad guys. Not because they're Jewish. Come on, people, let's be adults here. Not because they're Jewish, but because of how they are committing genocide. Now, only because I know you did I acknowledge that she is pro-Israel. And I didn't really understand what that meant. I'll be honest with you. Had I not known you, again, I wouldn't have thought anything about it. Wouldn't have thought anything about it at all. Because my only focus is minority female is about to be appointed the leader of the free world.
Right. And so just imagine my frustration and the frustration of anyone on the the left. I'm using air quotes here because that term, I have some things to say about that. But anyway, anyone who's in this position who like sees this presidential politics as being very much played out the same election after election after election, the same thing, the lesser of two evils. If you don't choose my candidate, the Democrat, then you are therefore pro Donald Trump, and you are pro patriarchy, and you are pro all this other garbage, racism, the rest. And we are so tired of it. I am so tired of it. We reject this whole framework of it. And I will talk about on CND, on my next episode of CND, how the electoral college, the electoral system that we have for choosing presidents in the United States is so fucked up. Because it will not, that's what they're citing. We talk about the DNC, and I'll talk about that in CND, but yeah, so we're tired of being put in this position. Well, if you're not choosing this, then you are therefore in favor of racism. You're in favor of patriarchy, et cetera, right? And so while I want, I am 100% behind, again, I'll say it again, I'm 100% behind women in positions of power, women in the presidency, yes. And I did acknowledge in the last episode that there's so many layers to that's the thing, is there's layers of it. It's for people who are just they don't really think politically, they don't follow politics, they don't really necessarily even care about Middle East or Gaza or any of that. They are aware, they are in tune with who gets to have a say in politics or any or whatever position of power, and women especially. So that's basically my issue is I didn't want to feel like I was necessarily endorsing Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, I want people to understand it's I don't want to be caught in this false dichotomy. Okay, you're with Trump, you're a Trumper, So it's I can't. It's hard to navigate this, and people, it's supremely frustrating for me.
Well, I think that a lot of people can sympathize with your position because on the one hand, they understand on a very real level, they understand what this election in particular means for women and the rights that we have that are being threatened. And our very way of living is being threatened. It is literally, on the one hand, you recognize that for us as women, this election is about, are we going to be able to have control over our own bodies? Or are men finally going to slam that hammer down and say, no, you will submit? For many women right now, everything else does go to the wayside because this is about our livelihood and our ability to make choices for our own bodies, and whether or not we allow men to assault our right to choose, and our right to just even exist, and our right not to be abused over and over again. That's what this is about. And yet, your position but she is siding with a country that is literally committing genocide. This isn't one of those things where, in the past, you could look at something and say, oh, this war is happening and children are dying and blah, 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 blah. No. This is an extermination. It's an extermination. And so it's well, crap. Yeah, I can see your position where you're I really want to see this happen for even, women, because you have a mother, you have a significant other, you have women in your life, And so you it's like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. You have this position where this is something that is so important to so many women, but at the same time, this really big thing, this is like a Holocaust happening right before our eyes. This isn't something that we're reading about in history books. This isn't something that happened 10, 15 years ago. This is happening now, today, an actual extermination of human life. It's not a small little, even if it was just a small little town, it doesn't matter the size. There's one group of people that is literally looking to exterminate because they're just inconvenient. They're inconveniently located. So yeah, many people in your position are struggling.
Yeah. And if the other point, I guess, is the third parties. Most people wouldn't even know third parties are even running or on the ballot, or even if they're lucky enough to be actually on the ballot. Because there are women candidates who if we had a debate where those parties were included, then people would know also that their position on, like, say, abortion would be the same. I mean, that's not the focus of their campaigns necessarily, but we wouldn't know. We don't know. Simply because of the way the Commission on Presidential Debates is structured, and I hope to see that go soon, and I hope to see more debates, and so we can have, like, more nuanced, more like, because then people might be able to see a little bit more about. It's like, okay, well, it's not just having a woman. It's like, okay, we can choose from among many women candidates. It's not just one. You know what I mean? It's it's like, well, this is what you get. It's like you either vote for her or you don't, or that's it. So it's I don't know. That's. Do
you want to hear a hard truth? You want to hear a hard truth?
I'm always hearing hard truths every single day. But let's have another.
Well, the thing is, it's like, because we don't know about these other parties, and that's the thing. It's not like we see. That's where you underestimate, I think, a lot of the general public, because there are many of us who do know that there are other parties, but because of, the limelight is on the Democratic versus the Republican, we don't. It's like, well, where did they go? If they're so important and if they're so great, then why isn't anybody paying attention to them? And to your opinion, that is because of suppression by these committees. By these committees. Okay, I challenge you to show me in what way they are. I want names. I want, because I'm not the only one. It's like, tell us who's doing this, because I remember long ago that when there was an election, there were other parties. Like, where'd Bernie go?
Well, that's an interesting thing you're bringing up. I am doing, and I'm currently doing the research that you're asking me to do. And I was, not that I wasn't to begin with, but that you added to that by saying, show me names. What's interesting you bring that up, because a lot of the times in the media, the mainstream media, the thing I love to quote so much, the mainstream media doesn't give you the names, or they'll give you vague generalities like Democratic spokesperson, or they won't deliberate, whether it's deliberate or it's just laziness. They don't want to bother to ask the questions of who, names, because the way I see it, and in my political world, my political context, the media is very much, they know what side their bread is buttered, and they know where not to go. And so if they start picking apart the Democratic National Committee, or any number of things, like, it can't criticize AIPAC or any, things like that. There are certain things you can't. So finding that information, a lot of times, even that in itself is a challenge, to just getting access to the right information.
Well, it's interesting that, again, you bring this up, because my knee-jerk reaction, and this is completely just reactionary, is number one, I didn't even think any other parties were running this election because we don't hear about them. But you're saying that there's suppression about this. However, okay, let's say I didn't know that there were parties, because now I do, because I was like, really? I thought we were only going to be given 2 choices on the ballot this year. I really believed that until you and I started talking, and I'm like, wait, there's going to be other parties on the ballot? Really? Well, why aren't they talking? Why aren't they? And my initial reactionary thought to there's going to be other names on the ballot is, well, they must not, and this is, I'm so sorry, they must not be that important if we haven't heard one peep from them. Like,
What?
as in, we all know, everybody knows that you have to raise a certain amount of money in order to run a campaign. And if you don't have those funds, you can't be as vocal. Well, it's like, well, if you can't raise the funds and you can't run your ads so that I know who you are, then how good can you be if you can't even raise your own funding for campaigning?
Well,
See, that's the average reaction.
Right.
Your
It's
response is,
because you're not on the national stage. You're not important enough to be. Right. Despite the fact that
how can you carry a vote? How can you really carry a campaign? How can you carry the presidency if you can't even raise funds for yourself, or be like on a blip on the radar?
Yeah. Well, it's just this whole self-perpetuating system that is the U.S. political system. It's self-reinforcing. We have these 2 parties that are perpetuating one another ad nauseum, ad infinitum.
Yeah. But that's just the thing. It's like, well, if these guys were really great and they really had some amazing messages, if they had something just like so profound, that would be better than the Republicans or I'm challenging you here, the Republicans or the Democrats, then why haven't they gained momentum in any way, shape, or form?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into it for sure, but let's take Jill Stein and the Green Party, for example. Like, her thing is like, I'm the alternative. Both candidates, both Trump and Kamala Harris, they are paid by AIPAC. They are pro-Israel. They are not going to change no matter who you vote for. So if you're Palestinian, God forbid, you're a Palestinian American, oh my God, how can you even, it's like, it's not even a choice, So, so Jill Stein, which is weird because she's the Green Party, right? You would think maybe the focus would be on the environment, right? But she's targeting her campaign and was like, I'm the alternative. I'm the alternative to this, to genocide, And she's not the only third-party candidate, obviously, but
it's like, yeah, I mean, it really does put all of us at a disadvantage, because when we go to cast our vote, when we get those little ballots in our hot little hands, we're going to be looking at it being like, oh, really? Who the hell are all these people? And that not one of them is going to be given any consideration, because it's like, we didn't hear about you one iota.
Right, and we always
this.
Right, and so the thing that's often said is like, oh, it's just a protest vote. You're throwing away your vote. You're voting for you're voting for the other 2 candidate, and it's like, yes, in this election, in this system that we have, yes, you can make that argument, and it's valid, and yet. That's the one thing that's cited is like this electoral, there's always some obscure rule from this electoral system that we have that you can throw at third parties to say, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, so you're not getting on the ballot. And the Democratic National Committee has used that, or in state Democratic parties have launched different lawsuits in their states, some with success, to get her off the ballot. And that's one thing I'm going to talk about in my next C&D. So stay tuned for that. I'm glad we did this episode because I just had those few things I wanted to get off my chest, and I felt like the last episode was just like,
Yes, rating on Women's Parade might have been.
And that's what because I am a white male. That's the other thing. I mean, listeners won't be able to see, but they can maybe figure out that, yes, I am a white male. And so it's like, I don't want to be cornered into this, oh, you're mansplaining me. And I don't, it's like I want to feel like there's room for people to debate these things.
There is.
And hopefully this podcast is one place. If we can't even debate amongst ourselves on a podcast, then we're really in trouble. So, oh my God. Okay.
Well, but no, that's valid when you look at TikTok and how nasty people get on that platform. If you say the one wrong thing, then you're going to be shadow blocked, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, or it's this horrendous back and forth between two creators. It's like, it's cutthroat. And this season in particular is very touchy.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some real,
It's I don't think it's going to get more vicious than this,
I do believe that. And so the unfortunate reality is that, we are looking at two choices, and one clearly looks evil and one does not. I see, in past elections, I could say that it was absolutely a choose the lesser of the two evils. Now, that may still be true here, but at the same time, I think, goddamn, I don't even know. But it's kind of sad because, you think that there are the Bernies of the world who didn't get a chance because people were too afraid.
Yeah, I think he got sniped.
To take
he
that
got
chance.
sniped.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got a long way to go. But the first thing is like direct popular vote, get rid of the Electoral College, start including more parties in the debates. Fine, there ought to be some levels, some standards you should meet. That's reasonable. But it is so often we just have these obscure laws just thrown in the face because of the electoral system that we have. And courts ready and willing to just okay, you're not on the ballot. Even though you have the support, you're not on the ballot. So I don't know. Anyway, I guess unless you have anything else to say, I'm happy to leave it there.
Cool.
So, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Morning Musings and Midnight Chats, a Javi Media Network presentation. If you have some comments, questions, complaints, or rants of your own to throw at us, by all means hit us up at info@javimedia.net or through our voicemail number 303-731-6104. You can find the Javi Media Network on TikTok and other social media, or on the web at javimedia.net. Javi Media.